Now, an opportunity for a decent work is almost life fulfilling for many. This is because such employment respects physical and mental integrity of the worker. The International Labour Organizations takes decent work to involve opportunities for work that are productive and have fair income, security in the workplace, and social protection for families, better prospect for personal development and social integration, freedom for people to express their concern, organize and participate in the decision that affects their lives, and quality of opportunities. This, the organized labor believes, bridges the gap between the rich and the poor and creates an atmosphere for prosperity in the society. The same work is applied to both the formal and informal sector. But are Nigerian employers conscious of this and working to promote decent work for national development? This vital question will engage my guests on the spot in the next half hour. I am Joseph Oten. Welcome to the program. Now, my guest is an advocate of rights of the workforce with more than 16 years experience in industrial and human resources management. In 2010, he joined the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association as Industrial Relations Officer and was later promoted to the position of Senior Executive Learning and Development in 2014. And in 2018, he rose to the rank of Deputy Director and Head of Membership Services, a position he held until his current appointment. My guest has served and is still serving in many trade organizations, including Train Master Trainer, International Labour Organization, and United Nations Industrial Development Organization. He is a member of the Governing Board of Nigerian Pension Commission, co-chairman of the Policy Board of Industrial Training Fund, member of the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center. He is also a member of the International Organization of Employers and council member of the National Labour Advisory Council, as well as member International Organization of Employers Business Advisory Group on Migration. On the spot is the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, Adewale. Oyerinde, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
All right, nice to have you. Okay, first let's try to know what the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association is all about. What's the mandate of the organization?
NECA is, as the name connotes, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, is the umbrella body of all employers in the private sector in Nigeria. NECA was formed in 1957 to provide the platform for government to engage organized businesses in Nigeria, and over time we've creditably discharged that responsibility. We are the voice of business. We advocate for enterprise competitiveness. We advocate for enterprise sustainability, and we do that through influencing government policies. So that government can create policies or come up with policies that will create an environment that will enable the private sector to thrive, because it's in the thriving of the private sector that we can hasten national development. So basically that is what we do. We have our headquarters in Lagos. And over the years, we have, with more than 4,000 direct and indirect members, businesses that are members of NECA. I think we have done creditably well in promoting enterprise sustainability and also protecting the rights of organized businesses through all legal and legitimate means. So that is basically our mantra. That is our main mandate, to protect the interests of the organized private sector and also to influence government policies at all levels, at the federal, state, and local government level, influence those policies so that they can allow private sector to thrive, basically in Nigeria.
Okay, talking about a conducive atmosphere for business to thrive.
Yeah.
the present administration has been talking so much about ease of doing business, and headed by the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo himself, who have been doing a lot.
Yeah.
What would you say we are in terms of ease of doing business?
Thank you. We commend the effort of the Vice President, who has done credibly well also. We also commend the effort of PEBEC, which has the leadership that has also made serious efforts to facilitate an enabling environment. But there is always a difference between the analysis or the theoretical explanation of this is our position in the context of enabling environment for organized businesses, and then the reality on the ground. Because the reality on the ground will probably negate the position that we hold, formally in government. And I must confess to you that the reality for organized business is that the environment is not as hospitable as been projected. The regulatory environment is also not hospitable as has been projected. The reality for us as organized businesses is worse than what we see from all contexts, from the fiscal and monetary policy angle, from our engagement with regulators that have seen themselves now as...
It would be good for you to give instances so that it will be clear to people. You don't just, when you still say ambiguously say it is not very clear. The public will want to know what is that is not correct.
Fine. Let me give you an instance. Let me pick the context of regulatory environment. We have regulators. Ordinarily, in other climes, regulators are meant to be business promoters. They are to facilitate businesses and not to turn themselves into income-generating agencies. The moment a regulator becomes, or his focus becomes income-generating, then rather than facilitate business, it will constitute another burden on organized businesses. And we have so many of those regulators that we have dealt with. Some regulators creditably well, they've done very well. We have PENCOM that is doing very well. We have ITF that have done very well. The engagement is ongoing with NSITF. Engagement is ongoing with many agencies, but some of them have create more bottlenecks than providing solutions to organized businesses. Let me look at the legislative environment also. And legislators, from our perspective, are to make laws. They are not to interpret those laws, and also not to create or take over the role of the executives. And we have some committees of the National Assembly summoning organized businesses, summoning chief executives to come to Abuja for one investigative meeting or the other. We feel those are distractive. If the House Committee have a problem with a company on issue of tax, there is a federal government agency, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, that is saddled with the responsibility of engaging organized businesses. So rather than the House Committee calling organized businesses to come and give account of their tax returns, the FRS should do that. Issue of expatriate quota. Rather than the House Committee calling businesses to come to Abuja for investigative hearing on issue of expatriate quota, the Ministry of Interior is the federal government agency, the executive agency that has been saddled with that responsibility. So while the Ministry of Interior is doing the same thing, while FRS is playing that role within this jurisdiction, you see how those committees of the National Assembly still creating those bottlenecks and those distractions. And those, they don't really encourage...
Those committees are just there to check, to make sure that things are working effectively.
So the oversight function, you have to carry oversight function on those executive bodies. If FRS have audited my accounts, they've given me a clean bill of health. If you have issues with the way FRS has done it, then you call the leadership of the FRS to give account how they have done their job. If the Ministry of Interior, if you think they have not done creditably well, then you summon those agencies to come and deal with those issues. So you don't create layers and layers of regulation. It creates bottleneck for organized businesses, and it makes doing business very, very cumbersome. All coming back to the issue of creating an enabling environment for businesses to thrive.
Okay, let's talk about job opportunities. Unemployment rate has been on the increase.
Absolutely.
NBS records shows that the unemployment rose from 27.1% in the first quarter of 2021 to 33% in the second quarter of 2020.
Yeah.
And by 2022, it was reported that it has risen, hit the 40%.
Yep.
We're not doing well in terms of unemployment. And you know, government is always argued by economics that government have no business in creating jobs. So the private sector is not doing that well.
Now, the private sector, as you have said, we align with that perspective that in other climes, private sector creates most of the job. Unreported research also showed that at least for every 10 jobs, the private sector creates about 8 of those jobs. So the reality for us is that for you to deal with the issue of unemployment, then you have to enable the private sector to do that. Also, the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 also gives specific role to the private sector in the context of job creation. And we can't be saying that with just by rhetorics. The government said they want to take 100 million Nigerians out of unemployment. Now, our position is this: you cannot continue in the contradiction. They say if you are in a hole, the first thing you do is to stop digging. Now, we cannot say that our unemployment rate is about 40%, and then those that are positioned to generate those employment, those that are positioned to create this employment, we are also creating bottlenecks for them in such a way that their capacity and ability to create employment is hindered. So if the private sector is not generating enough employment as we expect, it's because there are so many contradictions in the system that has made it very impossible for the private sector to do that. So currently, the issue is not about competitiveness. Most employers currently are more focused on the issue of sustainability. Let's be sustainable first before we now start talking of issue of being competitive. And for an average investor, an average investor that puts his money or that decides to take the risk, but there are so many inherent risks running businesses in the environment. For an investor or a business owner that decides to take the risk to bring his money down to this country to invest, one of the objectives will be profit. So if there's no possibility for me to make profit, there's no possibility of meeting shareholders' expectation within the context of the investment, return on investment, then it becomes difficult for me to bring my cash, my dollars or my naira or whatever denomination to this country to invest. And as we are destroying the ability of the private sector to generate jobs, we are also increasing the the dimension of the socio-economic crisis that we have.
Okay, talking about profit and sustainability or competition that you're talking about, we are meant to understand that ILO has that competition or desire for profit has made a lot of organizations not to respect the rights of the worker. But we'll talk about this when we'll come back from a short break.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a short break now and return shortly to continue with our conversation on decent work.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms:
Start Times Channel 101, Freak TV Channel 703, GSTV Channel 419, and Go TV Channel 46.
For more information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles: Twitter at NTA News 24, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers. NTA News 24, news and more news.
Welcome back. The program is On the Spot. And with me is the Executive Director of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. Now, before we went on the break, we were talking about the issues of employers' sustainability, profit. But I happen to understand that the ILO, that's the International Labour Organization, have complained that in recent times, there is this drifting away from the principles of decent work. I'm sure you know what decent work is all about. Now, for instance, in Nigeria, when you look at the circumstances in Nigeria, first of all, the wages. You look at the inflation, think about 21%, 9%.
Yeah.
Okay? When you look at that, many workers, even their wages can't even take them home. Yeah. When you look at other circumstances in terms of issue of casualization, it's like decent work in Nigeria is difficult to find decent work anywhere.
First, let me say we are also a constituent of the ILO. NECA actually represents Nigerian employers in the ILO, so we're a very strong member of the International Labour Organization, and also we subscribe to those principles, the principle of decent work as championed by the ILO, and we're also part of the team that worked on the decent work country program for Nigeria. I think the conversation is also ongoing. So we align with those principles as enshrined in the decent work country program, and also say that one of the things we preach in NECA is responsible enterprises. Responsible enterprises that meet their statutory obligations to all stakeholders, to employees, to government in the context of tax, in the context of other returns, and also businesses that are responsible to the environment and the community in which they operate, and that's within the context of CSR. And I can tell you boldly that Nigerian businesses are spending billions and billions of naira on CSR, corporate social responsibility, build schools, build roads, give scholarships, provide water, provide security in some instances. So within the circumstances of the current state that we find ourselves, Nigerian businesses are doing well in intervening. There is actually space for improvement. As the economy improves, as we have enough to share, then more can be done, definitely. Now, the issue of decent work. I will not agree totally that decent work is tending to zero degrees in Nigeria. We have employers that are doing creditably well within the context of decent work. They are providing opportunities for a living wage, not just minimum wage, opportunities for a living wage. They are providing an environment that is conducive and safe for workers to work. That are providing opportunity for career development for their employees. Now, those are some of the key components of decent work.
Okay.
Why there are gaps? There is no nation where you have those gaps. While there are gaps, but the conversation is ongoing on how we can encourage and how we can also help those employers that will have identified gaps on how they can actually meet up or bridge those gaps progressively.
You talk about some of the effort with the employers are making, but when you look at the reality on ground, even the issue of the wage that we are talking about, let's talk about the minimum wage.
Yeah.
The minimum wage, even though many people believe now that even that minimum wage now is due for review.
Yeah.
But even up to now, some, especially in the sub-nationals, they are not even implemented yet. And talk less of that's for the government side of the private sector. Some of them are not even thinking about it. As association that represents all these employers, have you not been having conversations towards this?
It's very important that we get the dichotomy clearly. At the private sector level, first, the minimum wage has a lifespan, and it's supposed to be reviewed every 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, for the private sector, there are institutional frameworks that help us to even review wages on 2 years basis. Some organizations, through the mechanism of performance appraisal, review wages on a yearly basis. The other parameters that we have are negotiations, collective bargainings that go on every 2 years. So wages progressively in the private sector now is reviewed every 2 years. So while we negotiated 30,000, the social partners plus 30,000 as minimum wage a few years ago, most private sector organizations are far ahead within the context of 30,000 minimum wage. Hardly will you find an employer in the organized private sector that is paying 30,000 as minimum wage, because the institutional framework that we have makes the increments, makes the review of wages consistent and progressive. Now, at the public sector, it's a different case, as you mentioned. We have up to today, we have some state government that are not paying 30,000 minimum wage. We have many that have refused, that are still paying 18,000 or less as minimum wage, which is quite unfortunate. Because
do you engage them?
Now we are representatives of organized businesses. At the public sector, we can share best practices. We can share modalities that we implement, that we operate with the public sector. Now, the decision to implement or decision to accept, rests on the public, on those government agencies and state governors. We don't have oversight functions, oversight powers. We don't have direct. We can't institute a direct carrot and stick kind of process on those state governors, because they are sovereign on their own. So it's the responsibility of the workers and also government at the federal level to make sure that if an agreement is signed, it's 30,000 minimum wage. The minimum wage doesn't stipulate whether subnationals should pay or not. It's a national minimum.
Of course.
And it's the minimum. So the minimum that anybody should pay. So if you can pay more than 30, if you can pay more than 40, if you can pay more than 50, it's allowable. But fundamentally in the private sector, we are paying more than 30,000 minimum wage. Considering the fact that even the 30,000 has been eroded by inflation, has been eroded by high cost of living. So the need for us, and we are proud to say the private sector has so many other mechanisms, apart from the salary, so many other welfare schemes. Notwithstanding the economic situation, we have so many welfare schemes that businesses are instituting and also helping their workers to live above the crisis that we find ourselves within the context of welfare.
Okay, definitely. In any business also, the employer and employee need to be comfortable, and in the absence of this, there are gaps, and those gaps are what created some of the issues that we do have in the society.
Yeah.
Just in some few seconds, just give me, what will you suggest as for a take home for anybody out there that will create that enabling ground for businesses to thrive in this country? Just a suggestion.
Now, government must play its role of facilitating business. All parameters that the business needs to survive. The business needs security to survive. You need access to forex to survive, because you are most of the inputs are imported. You need access to imports. The monetary policy must be friendly, not only to help local businesses, but also to attract foreign ones. Very importantly. And most importantly also, and we have established this with labor, the need for us to also collaborate more so that we can all advocate for a favorable environment. We can only share the wealth that is created. The wealth that we have the capacity to create, but that we have not created, we can't share it. And the way to create that wealth is for all of us, employers, labor, to become advocates of an enabling environment. So let us challenge government. Let's challenge government policies that are hindering businesses. Let's challenge government policies that are not making businesses to grow. And not only challenge them, but also come up with policy options. Because that's what we have done consistently. We don't only challenge those policies, but we come with policy options that look, let's try this if this haven't worked, so that we can all together, create wealth that can go around employers and also workers, and also contribute to national development.
All right, thank you very much for your perspective. We don't have much time. Adewale Oyerinde, Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. Thank you for being on the spot.
Our pleasure all the time.
That's it from the spot. Thank you, viewers, for always being there. I'm Joseph Oten. See you next time.